let's call this meeting, the Amherst School Board, to open. Dr. Wells, did you have something you wanted to say real quick?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the board, before we go into the moment of silence and Pledge of Allegiance, I would like to take a moment to recognize one of our employees, Mr. Keith Coley, passed away this past Sunday from a massive heart attack. And he was a 3-year employee. He worked in the maintenance department. And he was very well liked and very well respected among his team and really the rest of the county. So we want to pass on condolences to his family and friends and our coworkers who worked with him. So I'd like to keep that in mind as we do our moment of silence.
Thank you, sir. Okay. So we'll do our moment of silence and pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alrighty, so we need a motion to approve the agenda.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve tonight's agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none?
All right. Mr. Chair, ladies and gentlemen of the board, I'm going to present the budget, the 23-24 operational budget. But before I do want to take a moment and make a couple statements. I want to take some time to thank Ms. Lakonich and her staff, as well as Dr. Norman, for all the time and energy they put into preparing this budget. As a reminder, we received the governor's budget calculation tool from the Department of Education December 16th, 2022. At that time, we began the budget building process. We were notified in mid-January that the projections were not accurate from the VDOE. So we had to basically pause what we were doing. The projections ended up being $800,000 difference in what the governor said we were going to get, what the budget said and what the actual numbers will be. We were getting $800,000 less. So before we could get really into the budget anymore, we had to get some accurate numbers from the state. So we really put things on hold. So the VDO, we waited for the House and Senate to prepare their budgets, and as they crossed over, and then the state had to do new calc tools based off those budgets. So we did not receive our new calc tools from the state until last Thursday, which is February 16th. This gave us less than a week to complete the budget, prepare the budget books, and finalize our presentation for this evening. So just understand that even though normally we have from December to now, this year, due to powers beyond, events beyond our control, it kind of really put us in a time crunch. I will also add that your budget books will be placed at your seats while we go into closed session. So before you leave, when we come out of closed session tonight, you'll have your budget books at your seat when we finish there. And as I present the budget tonight, I do ask that we refrain from questions during the presentation. We'll discuss the budget in great detail on March 2nd at the school board retreat. And I also would ask that you compile a list of questions as you review the budget documents and send those questions to Ms. McNerney and myself prior to close of business of February 28th, so the staff can then have a day to go through your questions and prepare appropriate responses to any questions you may have regarding the budget. So at the retreat, we can go through those effectively. So I just ask again, we tonight is more informational for you and for the community, but again, the details will be in the budget book, and the details will be really discussed more on March 2nd as we go through the retreat on March 2nd. Okay? Any questions before we get started?
Board? I think we're good, Dr. Wells.
All right. So they have this at their place as well. So this at your place, you should have the same information I'm sharing. And so we'll just kind of go through it. So our main priorities this year, we need to maintain competitive pay scale with surrounding divisions. We know that you know, if we're not competitive with surrounding divisions, what's going to happen? Our staff is going to go to our local division. So we have to be competitive with our surrounding divisions. We need to maintain class sizes below the standards of quality to make sure we have good success of our students. Our next priority was projecting the market increases in area of operation costs in order to maintain facilities in the transportation fleet. And then our fourth objective or priority is to build programs that provide opportunities for all students to complete their school year ready for the next grade level or life after high school. So those are the four things we kind of focused on as we built the budget. So there's going to be 6 sections. There'll be a budget enrollment section. There'll be a General Assembly mandate section, summary of reviews, division pay increases, summary of expenditures, and then some closing information. Let's start with where the numbers came from. So 76% of our budget is focused on instruction. 9% goes into operations and maintenance. 8% goes into pupil transportation. And then 7% is administration and health. This does not include money from grants. This does not include the child nutrition program because the child nutrition program is self-funded through that program. So this is where the percentages of our budget is laid out. So when we look at the magic number again, enrollments was our budget is based off of. And so the state projection is 3751.30 for next year. Weldon Cooper came in for short term at 3795 and the midterm at 3815. And for our projections, we had 3799. We opted to base our budget off of the state numbers of 3751.3. And that way, if our numbers are better than that, that's additional funds we will receive from the state that we can put into our operating budget. But we feel the 3751 would be the worst case scenario. That's what we wanted to build our budget off of as far as enrollment. But we do believe our enrollment will be higher than that for next year. But figure for the budget purposes, we want to work it off the worst case scenario. Historical position information. 2009, 2010, in that time frame, we had the recession of 2008, so we started getting cuts in funding from that time frame. So in the recession of 2008, as you know, gas prices were $5 a gallon, everything else went up, and the recession hit, and jobs were cut, and so forth. In 2009, 2010, we cut 8.5 positions. In 2010-11, we cut 40 positions. 11 and 12, we gained 3. In 12 and 13, we cut additional 39. 13, 14, we cut 2. 14, 15, we added 2, and kind of been steady along that rate. But through the last several years, since 2009, 2010, we have a net deficit of 81.5 positions in the school division. So it's important, I think, for people to understand that we have cut positions trying to be good fiscal agents of the money, of our county's money in our budget. One thing that hit us is, as you know, the support cap of 2011. The support cap was put in place by then Governor Kane as a temporary measure to meet budget demands, and that temporary measure is still in place today. They have not raised the support cap since 2011's emergency mandate that they put in place. So when they did that, they cut the funding, state funding for our positions. So right now, we have roughly 750 positions. Of those 750, approximately 400 are funded by the state. The other 350 are funded by local dollars. So every time there's a % increase for salary, we have to figure out where it's coming from, and I'll spend more time talking about that a little bit later. Historical enrollment information, 2009, 2010, we were at 4,444 students. We've had a fairly steady decline to this year of 3,771. The reason I want to bring this to light, in that time frame, the training school closed, essentially training center closed, other jobs and support for the county closed, and some people left. Also, our county is aging, and so that's another reason for our loss in student enrollment. But even though we've lost student enrollment, and remember the previous slide, we've cut 81.5 positions net loss. If we look at the ratio for a 24-to-1 class size based on the standards of accreditation, this would only account for a loss of 28 instructional positions rather than a loss of 81.5 positions. So even though we've lost those students, it should only equate it to about 28 people as opposed to the 81 that we've lost. And I'm not saying we need to come in today and ask for, 50 more positions because, how much that would cost us. So we can't do that. But there is understanding. I think there is a need. People understand that we have reduced our staff based off of that, but we've also had a major reduction in staff based off the funding from the state and how that's impacted the education we give our students. Okay. So Weldon Cooper projections. So Weldon Cooper has short-term projections, mid-term projections, and long-term projections. I showed you this number earlier. Again, the short-term is $37.95, the mid-term is $38.15, and the long-term is $37.99. I think it's also important to note on here that as you look at it from 22 to 27, in short-term, there's a 256 student loss. In the mid-term, there's a 159 student loss projection. In the long-term, it's a projection of 188 student loss. This does not take into account any of the proposed housing developments that have been proposed for the Madison Heights part of the county. These are projections based off of the trend data over the years. We anticipate that when those housing developments and new subdivisions are placed in, that we will see an increase in student enrollment. But until those actually get built and we start seeing people move into those houses, we won't really know what that number is going to really look like. But this is Weldon Cooper's projections. They haven't always been right, so they've missed it a couple years. So we're going to base it off what we know we have, and that's where we are right now. But these are the projections over time as we move forward into the next 5 years. But we do anticipate, again, some of those new subdivisions increasing student enrollment as opposed to a drop in student enrollment. General Assembly, the nuts and bolts of this. So the pay increase for SOQ funded staff is in both the governor's, the House, and the Senate budget. The governor had a 1% retention bonus for staff. The Senate has a $1,000 bonus for SOQ staff. The House and Senate both have a reading specialist ratio requirement, which we'll go into a little bit. And then the Senate has a specialized student support staff ratio. And all those are people, and people or money. But it's important to know that the 1% SOQ funded bonus and the $1,000 SOQ bonus is only for those positions that are funded through the state. The other 350 people are not funded in that. So therefore, that's where we have to find additional funds. I don't think it's fair for me to give one person, because they're SOQ funded, a 1% increase or $1,000 bonus, but the person who's not SOQ funded doesn't get it. I don't think that's the way to operate if we want staff to stay around. So we need to make sure we find the funds to do that. That's what I've focused on in our budget, is how to do that. Summary of revenue. So the governor's budget came in at $37,315,907, and that's what we're basing our budget off of. We're basing our budget off of the governor's budget. The House came in at $37,018,524, and the Senate came in at $38,986,982. We do believe that the actual number we're going to get will be somewhere between the governor's budget and the Senate. Right now, it's in conference, so the House and Senate are in conference committee, and until they come out of conference on the governor's whole budget, not just education, but the whole state budget, until that comes out of committee, we won't really know what we're going to get. But we don't anticipate, we know it shouldn't be worse than the $37,315,907. We do believe it'll be somewhere between there and the Senate. Exactly how far we get and what the stipulations are is still a question. Under the governor's budget, it required a 5% pay increase, and that's what we started building our budget off of in December. And then the House and Senate came in at 7% pay increases, and that required us to go with the 7% pay increase because all the local school divisions around here are going to try to do the 7%. It's important to note that, again, back to the spending cap, that for every 1% we increase our budget increase our salary, it's $390,000 in local funds we need to request from the county. So for a 7% pay raise this year, it cost us from the county, it's about $2.7 million to do. We have to find $2.7 million to do a 7% pay increase. That money is not coming from the state. That is all local dollars that we have to find. So it's important to realize that as we go through the budget process, that even though it sounds great that the state's doing a 7% pay raise, and it is great that they're funding it, the fact that they're not funding all those positions requires us to find local dollars to fund the other positions. So everybody gets, so I don't have those, again, SOQ funded positions receiving a 7% pay raise, and my non-SOQ funded positions receiving no pay raise. So we have to find those local dollars. Okay. But in the House version, it does have a 7% pay increase. It has a reading specialist ratio for K through 5 of 1 to every 550 students, and 6 through 8 for 1 to every 1,150 students. And it also has in the Senate the 7% pay increase. They have a $1,000 bonus. We have reading specialist ratio of a K through 8 of 1 to 550, and then specialized student support of 4 to 1,000. So again, it's those are additional personnel, and how those will be funded is what we're waiting to find out. So revenue, if you take the state revenue of $31,152,220, the state sales tax of $6,163,687, then we have federal funds of $3,006,631, the CARES funds of $4,226,73, child nutrition at $2,827,574, and other local funds of $193,427. That, along with our Board of Supervisors requests of $16,402,089, that gives us a total revenue of $63,971,701. Say it again, 63, those are big numbers. $63,971,701. Again, we are requesting an additional $2,500,000 from the Board of Supervisors to fund this budget, because the past several years we've been kind of level funding at $13,902,000. This year, based off the budget requirements and budget constraints, we are going to request an additional $2,500,000 from the Board of Supervisors. So again, the proposed budget provides for a 7% pay increase for all contracted staff. I think that's important to get a 7%. If you tried to buy a dozen eggs or some gas or paid your power bill, you see that there's a need there. Has a 7% increase of substitute pay tables. Has an additional 1% for bus drivers, so it's a 7% plus additional 1 for bus drivers. Puts custodial staff on the grounds pay table, which basically results in between a 1 and 3 additional percentage increase for custodial staff. And also, child nutrition is going to have an average increase of 15%, and that's to get them on par with local divisions. That is, again, that money comes from the child nutrition budget, is separate from our operating budget. Expenditures, we are adding more money for fuel. We're adding about $240,000 an additional in the fuel line. We're adding an additional $350,000 for utilities. We're going to increase the employer contribution to health insurance of 10%, but there'll be no employee increase. We're adjusting for maintenance contracts and software renewals, and we're including funding for staff development. So we are adding money for the fuel line and for the utility line, as well as insurance. Other expenditures, we have a vacant part-time custodial position we're going to move to full-time. We have a 0.7 FTE Title I position that's shifting to operating, and that's basically due to the amount of money we get in Title I to cover salary and benefits. It's not enough there, so we're going to put it into operating budget because that money is really not increasing, but the salaries keep increasing as we do pay increases, so we have to offset that. We're going to add 2 EL instructors at elementary and secondary. Health assistant, shift from CARES to operating. A computer technician, a shift from CARES to operating. We're going to eliminate a vacant grounds position, and that funding will be shifted to contracted services, and that will save us roughly $40,000. And then we're going to adjust internally school counselors, resulting in a 0.5 FTE decrease. So again, back to expenditures. The budget, $63,258,219. Operating budget, $1,353,870. Child nutrition, $392,129. Federal adult programs, a negative $77,306. CARES, a negative $955,211. For a total school operating budget of $63,971,701. Again, so in our proposed budget, the school operational budget is $53,911,423. Child nutrition is $2,827,574. Grants, $3,006,631. CARES funding, $4,226,073. For total expenditures of $63,971,701, and our total revenue also of $63,971,701. So closing information, how are we going to share this information with the public? We're going to put it on our website. We're going to have social media accounts. We're going to put links on social media. We're going to put information up there on School Messenger with links to the budget. And again, we have a public hearing scheduled at the March 9th school board meeting. Again, as a reminder of dates, March 2nd, we have the board retreat. March 9th, we have a public hearing at the regular school board meeting. March 16th, we have a work session scheduled if needed. Hopefully we won't need it. We'll get everything done on March 2nd. And then March 21st, I present your budget to the Board of Supervisors. So again, we do ask on notes that come prepared with questions and suggestions so we can make sure we present the budget you want to present to the board. And then my final thoughts, again, I would like to thank everyone who played a role in the budget process. There's a lot of work had to be done in a very short amount of time. There are programs and positions we would like to include in our budget, but due to funding constraints, we can't include them in this year's budget. However, we do believe this budget meets the overall needs of our school division. As a reminder, we will discuss the budget in detail on March 2nd. Again, I ask that you compile a list of questions as you review the budget documents and send them to Ms. McNerney and myself by the end of the day on Tuesday, the 28th. And that concludes my presentation of the budget.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wells. So, like always, your crew does a really good job of putting things together that we can see and kind of go through it in just a simple form. So, thanks everyone for all the effort. It does not go unnoticed, that's for sure. I will remind the board that we need to get our questions that we have for Dr. Wells to him by the 28th so that they can, have time to get us some good answers. So, is there anything else you need from us tonight, Dr. Wells?
Regarding the budget, this is just my initial presentation. So again, I'd ask you when we get the budget books, take them home, look through them, study. If you have questions, you can reach out to us direct. If you have something just want to know, you feel free to call. We'd be glad to go through it, but we can also, if it's a more detailed answer, I'd like for everyone to get the answer as well. So you may have a question others have. So that's why I like to have those presented when we do the actual the retreat on the 2nd.
Okay. Thank you. Board, anything you want to? Okay.
So
moving on.
At this time, I'm going to ask that we go into closed session.
Okay.
And so pursuant to section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia, it is recommended the board convene a closed meeting for the following matters. A1, personnel.
Okay. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
Make a motion, we go into closed session.
A second? Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none.
All right. Thank you.